Welcome students. Again, today we look at human resource development but in a different perspective. We're looking into human resource planning in hospitality industry. Yes, indeed. Now we'll go in depth to find out what happens in terms of human resource planning in the hospitality industry. Well, we all know hospitality industry is a labor intensive industry. That means we need a lot of resources, a lot of human resource. And human resource is actually the backbone of hospitality industry. Last 2 years, things are changing for sure, but still at the moment, hospitality is actually a lot reliant on human resource, and human resource is the backbone. Now, what happens is when we develop the action plan, so we need to take the stock, we need to know what is the infrastructure we have. Do we have hierarchy chart available? Do we have duties and responsibilities available? Do they have job roles available? Do we have policies and procedures available? What infrastructure is required at the moment and what is the requirement in the future? So that's where human resource in hospitality industry, gathers all the momentum. Now let's look at the objectives. We're going to look at the theoretical basis and conceptual issues with alternate approaches to human resource planning. What are different approaches? What are the theoretical bases? And what are the issues along with human resource planning? We also look at the conflicts that come between theoretical construct and political process of human resource planning. So let's go further and look at what is the difference and what are the conflicts that are coming in, because if you look at human resource in hospitality, which is quite labor intensive, there must be conflicts, because when it's okay to have conflicts, but more so we need to know how to resolve those conflicts and move on and find a solution. And thirdly, the resultant practices in human resources planning, as I was saying, that it's okay to have conflict, but how do we move on? What solutions do we bring? What practices do we bring so that we avoid those conflicts? Okay, now let's take it a little bit. I will give you a brief background in terms of human resource planning in the hospitality industry, which we know is very much labor intensive and obviously needs human resource. And let's take an example. Why we're saying, let's take a restaurant. What happens in a restaurant? Food is served, food and beverage are served in the restaurant. Who cooks the food? Chefs. Who bring the food? Supplier. Who processes the food? Chefs and the commis. Who serves the food? Waiters. Who clean the food? Bring it. Who takes the order? Waiter. Who brings the dishes back? Waiter, waitress. Then goes to dishwasher. Who does the inventory? Chefs. Who does the suppliers give you and who puts back in the shelves? Waiters and the front staff and the back of the house. A lot of labor intensive. Now I give you one example. I was in Savarna Bhavan. It's a vegetarian restaurant from India, which is all around the world. It's one of the world famous vegetarian restaurants around the world. I was in Savarna. This is a South Indian chain, very famous. So we went over there. This is COVID time and the restrictions are just coming out in Melbourne. So we thought, okay, let's go. And obviously, being Indian, I prefer Indian food. And they do serve very delicious South Indian food. So that was our inspiration to go there. As soon as I went over there, you just cannot go walk in. So you have to book the place. So if you do not book the place, you go there is a QR code scanner. I scan, our seats were booked over there. And then when number came, we realized that our time is coming. I parked my car, we went over there with 4 of us. As soon as we went over there was no one to receive us. So, well, what is this? There was a robot. Yes, there was a robot to receive us. And the robot took us to our table. We went to our table and we sat there. And then when we saw the table, there were actually QR codes on each of our tables. So we actually scanned QR code and then we saw the menu on our mobile phones. And then we decided, all of us. And as soon as we decided, it was because the QR code was to that particular table, whatever we ordered went automatically to the kitchen. Look at it. We talk about labor intensity. And then this order went to the kitchen and then the robot comes back and gives us the order. And we got the order from the robot. Well, yes. And then when the order came, we thought, how do we pay money? You could actually pay money through your mobile phone. So technically, I was having no one to serve me food, to take my orders, and to say thanks. But there were some issues, so my wife had to go to the reception desk, and when she was doing, she said, I will pay here. And we had some issues, and we put a complaint up, and it was resolved in a minute. What I'm trying to say here, this is the future of hospitality. But who was in the kitchen? I do not know if the robots working in the kitchen, the person, but that's going to take time. The practicality, the reality is that we're still in a transition mode. We're in transition mode when we used to pick up the logs and put in the wood fire into the oven. So things are still a long way to go, but it's going to be our future. Let's talk about current and near future. We still need to plan. We need to plan how we'll be working on the tourism, how we'll be managing our human resource, how we'll be training our human resource. And now, with 2 years of blockage and this new variant coming, it will pass as a passing shower. It will go. I know it's given a lot of damage to the humankind, but people have a tendency to go out. They will not sit in the house. And you have seen this during COVID times, how many people are protesting to coming out in most of the Western countries. Now, human resource planning, it's a very, very important area, both for the industry as well as the government. Because as I was explaining you earlier, that governments need the people to work. When people will work, they'll give taxes. There'll be low unemployment rates. There'll be flourishing of the businesses. Economy will grow. And for industry, when there are people to work, they will actually be able to accept more people, have more business, right? Now, at times, government and industry, they join hands together. They work so that we have win-win for the hospitality industry as well as for the government. But if you look at developing countries, still there needs to be more investment in terms of tourism and area of human resource development. I still remember European countries as well as in Australia, what I saw that people were given vouchers. They were given vouchers for $100 to $200 each that they could go out and spend in the hotels, restaurant, wherever. I've been given $200 voucher to go out and spend with my family. Why? Why these vouchers? Because government wants us to spend money. Where do I spend money? I can only spend in a restaurant or in a hotel or in a resort or whatever it is, in the hospitality and tourism. That's going to grow, give them a business. When I go there, I actually use a transport, either a public transport or personal transport. I park my car, right? I wear some dresses. I go out with my friends. So economy is moving, so, just giving a push to the economy. Now, obviously, it's a dependence on government's efforts, especially for human resource planning and development, because we need to have permissions for opening a hospitality institution for the training courses, isn't it? And that's one you're doing right now. So there's a requirement for the government initiative or support. Now, it is a quite area of concern, but if you look at hospitality industry, it has been very, very advanced. I did my hotel management around I started in 1996. So even then, when there were hardly few hospitality colleges in India, but they were private industry who were giving training, in-house training. They had a lot of training programs. They had human resource development departments. So what is it? They wanted the industry to grow. They were not just only dependent on the government initiatives and the colleges and institutions. And that's where it's a critical question, that why do we need improvements in human resource development standards? Indeed, we need that, isn't it? Better human resources development. If you look at hospitality industry, it's a labor intensive. How long can you work in that industry? What are things you require? How is work and family life balance? What are the incentives, promotions? All those things need to be considered, isn't it? And that's where human resource planning is very, very important. Let's look at some more reasons why is this human resource planning important in hospitality industries. Number one, when you work, why do you work? Why do you work in any place or any industry? You work so that you can earn a livelihood for yourself and family, right? Now, that means when people work, as I was giving example of how $200 voucher was given, $100 voucher was given to us to go out and spend. When we go out, it's actually economic development, because I'm spending petrol, I'm giving my parking charge, I maybe go and get some gift on the way back, I will be with friends, I will wear some different clothes. What's happening? I'm spending $200 on the restaurant or the hotel, but I'm doing many other extra things. So it's actually moving the economy. Now, that actually helps in employment generation. So many countries, they have national employment strategy. How will we employ our resources, our younger generation or the current generation, so that employment is always controlled, unemployment is not there. And that's where many nations are looked at how good are they in managing their employment. So they have to have employment strategy, and especially talk about hospitality and tourism, which is a lot of requirement of. So that means tourism supports nations in balancing their national employment strategy. Now, again, tourism brings foreign exchange. It does bring foreign exchange. Why? People from other countries of the world, they move to other places. When they go out, they spend money. They spend money. So that means money is transferred from the host place. Let's say someone from Australia is coming to India. They actually have collected their money. They earn the money in Australia. Now they're bringing the money in, spending in India. So India will have that much extra money. Let it be $1,000. That $1,000 was generated in Australia and being spent in India. So that's actually a foreign exchange earner. So that's a tourism. Again, why would someone come to India? Now, India is a land of heritage and culture. That means we need to make sure our land of heritage and culture is, safe. It's marketed. It's informed the people, educated that this is where we have. So we need to do some marketing. Let people know so people can come here and spend their money, spend their time, have some good experiences from here and knowledge sharing from here. India has been you can say a destination on the world for the spiritual tourism, for the knowledge to the world. So that means we need to let them again revive that, right? Obviously, we also have facilities. That means what level of services and facilities are available. So the customers, when they come over here, how these services will be used. That means how many people will be required to manage those facilities, to develop those facilities, to maintain those facilities, and what quality and standards are required. All those things are done through human resource planning. And when we have human resource, now we develop those skills and knowledge in human resource. That's called human resource development. So obviously in tourism and hospitality, it's very, very imperative to have a planning and human resource, isn't it? From planning to development both. Now, if you look at it in the recent few years, we have a lot of tourism or special interest tourism have come up. Now, each specialized form of tourism, they require specialized skills. Now, we used to have guides, but we have adventure guides. And if there's a specific sports that they are dealing with, these will be actually required to have the skills and knowledge in that particular sport, isn't it, in that adventure sports. Or maybe island or even beach guides. They may have skills, rescue skills, or even a wildlife. They will know how to manage in a difficult situation. So they need to have proper training in that. And again, accommodation sector, hospitality sector, they really, really need the human resource. And obviously, it is dire necessity to have a proper planning that how many institutions do we have to train those skills, where do we have that, where is the skill shortage, where the hotels are. I'll give you one more example from Vietnam. Vietnam was a country which was under the Vietnam War, you might know. After the Vietnam War, this country liberated itself and this country is flourishing like anything, and they're doing development in tourism and hospitality. And they are getting funding internationally to make it one of the best countries in the world for hospitality and tourism. And they have done a lot. Now, obviously, we really, really need this human resource planning and development because we are open to the world, right? So a lot of open sectors of tourism are open. People are readily moving from one place to another. Passports, visa policies, your open sky policies, your ease of doing business. There's so many reasons now, and world is become a global village. And now you can go from one place to another. That means the tourists are more knowledgeable. they're more educated. They know what is right and wrong. They know what is good and bad. That means we need to have qualified labor around the world, which knows what to do, what not to do. And for that, we need right institutions. And also we need a lot of human resource who takes care of the quality, who takes care of the moments or giving better experience to their customers and clients. And for that, we need highly training, and that training will be planned to human resource planning and will be institutionalized or delivered through human resource development. Now, hence for human resource planning and development, hospitality is the product which is very imperative, because we need to have quality standards. We need to make sure that we are fulfilling the customer needs, and obviously we need both human resource planning and development, and especially for a special kind of tourism, that means adventure island, whatnot. So even the accommodation sector for that. Now we know that in accommodation we have customers staying with us, so we need people to clean the rooms, and we need to make sure all the cleaning part, all the maintenance part of the room, and the requirements of the customers are fulfilling the accommodation. That means we need to have workforce which is trained in that. They are aware of it, but where do we get it from? So tourists know a lot of things now, so they're demanding. We need to fulfill, isn't it? It's demand and supply. So we need to fulfill that requirement of or demands of our tourists. To do that, we need to have skilled labor, knowledgeable, and obviously not like one hotel. There's so many hotels, they all are looking for the skilled labor. I was talking to one of the general managers in Delhi a few years back, and I went to, because that time I had some time, so I said, okay, I can train your staff. So we're talking about the staff. He said, let's go and have a look. When I went over there, he said, Bharat, 30% of my staff, I give them training and they just leave. I'm quite tired. So that's a lot of money, right? So to make sure that education and planning is done, so there are three approaches: social demand approach, rate of return, and manpower requirement approach. Let's go and have a look one by one. In social demand approach, as the name says, social demand, what is our income that is being given to education people who are educated? What is the taste of the household for education? Do they want people to study, the children to study, or they want them to work? What are the demographic characteristics? How is the death rate of that area? How is the fertility rate of that area? Did you know the fertility rates in the European countries are going very low? That's why there's a lot of immigration. They call for immigration. Why? Because their fertility rate is very low. Or in some countries, the death rate mortality rate is more higher. Another part which is very, very important in that society is how much cost of money does it involve to educate a child, and what are the standards and level for education. When you go to Harvard University, so you have to have that level and standard before you can get admission. Now, we also look at the second approach, which is called rate of return. So we look at how much education has contributed to the productivity. That means, what is the rate of return in terms of what we're doing in terms of education investment? How much is the cost of education? And doing hospitality course, how much cost does it take? And what does hospitality gives you back in terms of monetary value when you finish a course? And is there any issues that come in place, or is it that we get good amount of returns? And the last is the most important is rate of return approach. That means direct cost and indirect cost, and talks about returns. We'll talk about direct cost. What is direct cost? Expenditure on the education, which is done by private institutions. What do you mean private? What do you mean public? Now, let's say you study in a public school, you study in a government university, right? What are you doing expenditure on that? You are doing expenditure of, maybe you're buying your books, you're going to the institution, you're doing some courses and spending some money. What is government spending on that? Government has made university huge infrastructure, isn't it? took a land and maintaining those infrastructure, constructing, giving salaries and wages to the staff and all. So again, these are both a direct cost. What is a private expenditure and what is a public expenditure, right? Let's go to the indirect cost. So they looked at from the private angle that how much earning that a student could do if the student was not attending a school or a college, right? Or what are the opportunities that are lost by opening a university instead if there was a hospital, instead if there was something else who's doing maybe a factory who was actually working or doing a business over here and maybe giving employment to so many people and making more money, right? So it's called cost of opportunity lost, and also it's also the earnings which are foregone or missed because students are studying. So again, that's called rate of return approach. Now, what about returns? That means after you do a course, what are directly monetary benefits? So is it the schooling or initial education, both earnings that you receive? And also, if you have a skill that you do is on-the-job training, that are again indirectly monetary benefits, because you're working into the particular role, you got a lot of skills and enhanced skills. Now you have improved your value in terms of industry. You can go and ask for so much amount of money at charge, and then you can be paid for that. So what overall we're looking at? We're looking at monetary benefits, we're looking non-monetary benefits. That means non-monetary benefits are I know how to, when I go to 5-star hotel, how do I manage, how do I sit, how do I communicate, what are different aspects, what are glamour, a lot of things that you learn in your life, and education that you give to the society, and you can educate others, right? Understanding health and hygiene when you work in the hospitality industry. And when you do schooling, you understand how to go study with others, live with others, be a better social, have a social behavior and traits, and understand other cultures, languages, respect each other. A lot of qualities are improved, isn't it? These are non-monetary benefits. That's again comes in a rate of return approach. And last is manpower approach. So obviously it is between education and economic growth. We look at when there's a lack of manpower, which is skilled manpower, the growth is reduced, isn't it? And obviously we make sure that balance is always there, so that if the manpower is reduced, the growth is going to go down. So that means you need to really invest more into educating the manpower and making sure that the industry is doing and they are getting the right manpower and they are doing, excelling. So what are the steps involved in this approach? So we look at how much investment is to be put in the right sector for the development of each sector, and that indirectly or directly relates to how much economy is growth into that particular sector. Imagine we have hospitals without doctors. Imagine we have factories without engineers. Imagine we have university without teachers or lecturers and professors. So that sectors will actually not have growth, because we need to have right amount of manpower and the right amount of opportunities, right? So that means you need to have norms where we see how many people can be given permissions to educate so many students. That's why every university can teach a number of students into a particular course every year. And again, we look at the requirement, which sector is more requirement. And I'll just give you another example that in Australia last year in 2020, after the COVID-19, so what happened, they made it a rule that some of the courses were made very, very expensive and some of the courses were made very, very cheap, because they wanted students to go into that particular direction so that we could fulfill the skills, needs or the gaps in the skills in the industries. We also look at physical targets for development. Obviously, we look at that if education is given, what are the manpower requirements? As a saying, that we cannot give more than n number of students coming out of each year when they cannot be employed. And we also look at implications of educated manpower requirements for education development. We also need teachers. We also need people who can move into teaching and get this education passed to the next generation. So we look at rate of growth in human resources. which is looked by two ways. Number one, quality and the quantity, right? How do the human resource growth? So in terms of quantity, we look at the policy of the population structure, migration, because obviously people move from one place to another. So that comes is in terms of quantity of human resource. How many resources do we need? For that, what is the population structure of that area? Do we need to have some extra incentives to study that particular qualification in that particular area? Another example I'll give you that if you migrate to Australia, they ask you to go to regional and study in regional Australia. If you study in regional Australia, they give you extra 5 points for the permanent residency. Why they give extra 5 points? Because they want students to go to that particular area. When the students go over there, the whole economic changes over there. You'll be able to work over there. You will be part of the society. You'll be putting in money over there. The university will get money. That money will go in the local area. And also, in terms of quality, how good is the quality of education and training? How that improves health and nutrition of the society, and how it gives equal opportunity to all the members of that society and area. So, in saying so, what did we learn today? We learned theoretical basis and conceptual issues associated with alternative approach to human resource planning. We did not just look at human resource planning. We look at the tourism, hospitality. We look how governments do that, and we look at when we do the theoretical construct, how policies are made to make sure the human resources planning, or how incentives are given. As I gave you example of how when you go to study in Australia, they ask you to go and give extra 5 points if you go regional studies. And obviously the resultant practices of human resource planning are, we have benefits in the society. We look at how we well behave in terms of health, in terms of education, and in terms of overall development and growth in the society. With this, I'd like to thank you for today, and I hope you enjoyed this session. Have a good day.